Do one more. Sorry, one more. Check 1, 2.
On their way, but we're going to go ahead and get started at 7:35. I want to welcome you to the Senate Appropriations Economic Development Subcommittee. Thank you all for being here. I know 7:30 is early, but I appreciate you coming. Before I get started, I want to tell you that we've seen some of the moves that the House has made. And on the operating side of the budget, there's been an increase from what the governor's revenue estimate is. So I would say that you guys may want to decide or consider you're going to have to maybe cut 1% of your budget, so you may want to think about that, because there's going to have to be some cuts if what the House is proposing goes through. So just FYI. And we're going to look at everything that they submitted and challenge some of the things that they did do. All right, we're going to start with Department of Community Affairs. Commissioner Nunn, the floor is yours. And when you talk to us, if you would tell us the line item that we're talking about,
Absolutely.
I would appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Great to be with you this morning. Our budget recommendations are relatively straightforward this year, but I'm going to group them into 3 buckets. One are just enterprise changes. The second is presentation changes, which I'm going to refer you to the slide on the screen. And the third are substantive changes, which I will walk through. On the enterprise changes, I think you're familiar. These are consistent throughout the budget, and many of these are reflected in each of the programs before you. I'm not going to touch in depth on those. The presentation changes, I think, are best demonstrated by the colorful chart on the screen. So about 7 years ago, it was recommended, House Senate Budget Office, OPB, that we look at consolidating the number of DCA program budgets. This is a bigger task than one might think, and it requires extensive coordination between the Senate and the House and OPB and our team. And I want to thank Caroline and Brent and the House Budget Office and OPB and my DCA team for being able to work this through. The conversion to next gen is actually very helpful in this effort, and it's been long in the works. You will note that this really simplifies the DCA budget as a whole. Historically, we have had 13 different program budgets, many of them literally very small, like individual programs, and it's not consistent with the way that we are organized as an agency, so it creates some inefficiency. What we have done is, in conjunction with your team, we have worked to consolidate our budget down into the way that we actually operate our organization, and then call out those specific lines from a transparency standpoint that the House and the Senate asked for. So you can see here where building construction in the budget that we present is a standalone budget item. And then the next four items on the left, coordinated planning, regional services, regional research and surveys, and federal community and economic development programs are consolidated into our community service program budget. That's how we run the agency. We actually pulled historic preservation, which got folded into DCA during I believe it was the FY22 budget cycle, 21 budget cycle. We pull that out for transparency for the legislature, the state economic development programs, and then all the housing programs, which are primarily federally funded, are consolidated into housing initiatives with the Accountable Housing Initiative, which was a new program last year as a standalone. Again, this does not involve any addition or subtraction of funding. It simply involves a collapsing of those program budgets. But I do want to stop there and just ask if there are any questions on the presentation.
Any questions, Senator?
Okay.
So on the, like, those homeownership programs and rental housing programs and special housing initiatives, they're all lumped into that housing initiative program, but they're still separate grants, aren't they? You qualify for grants for different programs, or you apply for grants?
Absolutely. There are a number of different programs that are managed within our housing initiatives. They are all primarily federally funded or bond funded. So yes,
Okay.
This doesn't mean we're doing any fewer things as an agency. It just means that we, from an efficiency standpoint, are spending less time managing 13 program budgets versus the 7 that we've consolidated here.
All right, let's talk about the budget.
Okay,
Let's talk about
substantive changes.
76.1.
Absolutely.
Tell me
Substantive
about
changes.
that $2 million.
Absolutely. So at 76.1 on your on page 1 of your tracking sheet is a $2 million House ad. This is for a stable housing accountability program. It's a homeless initiative that was launched last year. Again, it was new in 2024, and this is contrary to most of our homeless funding, which is derived from federal funds. This was an attempt to launch a new Georgia Way initiative. And so the Stable Housing Accountability Program includes legislation that puts some Georgia requirements on agencies that would pursue these funds. There are 5 statutory requirements of the programs and 9 statutory requirements of the residents that would go into those programs, notably sobriety and adequate nutrition for minor children. We launched this program in October of last year, and we made 6 awards in December to 6 service providers. Many of those were kind of concentrated in Metro Atlanta, Metro Savannah, and North Georgia. 2 were existing providers that said we will pilot a new Georgia Way initiative. 2 were newer service providers in areas of significant need that were expanding their operations, and 2 were actually brand new service providers that increased our capacity again in North Georgia. I will note that we had 52 applications and 6 of those were funded and awarded. So this $2 million, which would bring the total to $3 million in that budget, would simply enable us to do more grants to serve more populations using the Georgia Way model. Questions?
Yes.
Just to try to understand this a little bit better, the 6 that got the awards, what are they specifically doing with this money? Why don't you pick them?
Well, we selected them because they met all the requirements of the program. They are housing homeless population from Atlanta, Douglas County, Forsyth County, Dawson County, Chatham County, and I can't remember the 6th. So they are housing people who are unsheltered homeless, and I believe it's roughly 250 people total that are projected to be housed. Again, all of those awards were made in December, so it's early for the returns. We, of course, will monitor their compliance with all of the requirements in the contract.
So they're finding housing, they're finding homeless people, and they're putting them in that housing, basically.
Correct, and including temporary housing shelter.
Okay.
How's the success been of these? It's too early?
Too early to tell. Was very pleased that we were able to really quickly tap in and leverage some folks who have the demonstrated capacity. Either they've been doing this for a while, or and were willing to try something new, or they were doing something and were able to expand. But I also was pleased that we were able to tap into kind of expanding our capacity. This is a much longer conversation you and I have had offline. We've got lots of parts of the state that have need and don't have a lot of capacity of service providers that will address the need. The state's not in the business of actually providing homeless assistance. We provide funding to service providers who do the work.
Okay. I just would say this. I'm all for funding this, but I want to make sure we're tracking and getting results and making
Absolutely.
sure these people are either getting off drugs or getting sober or getting jobs or
Right.
are trying to better themselves. You follow me?
That's what our team does day in and day out.
okay.
I mean, working with both to expand the network and also to ensure that we are complying with the. And I will note that. That is very much a requirement on all of the federal funding, and we'll talk about that when we get down to line 83. That is very much a requirement. All of the reporting and all of the, what's the performance of the, based on the grant funds that have been awarded.
So if we were to fund this, you'd probably be able to go from 6 to maybe 18, 20?
That would be my guess. It depends on, many of these applicants actually applied for more funds than they received. So, whether it went from 6 to 18 or 6 to 15 or 6 to 21, I can't tell you, but
Okay.
it would mean that we would be able to fund more grants.
All right. Go ahead.
Okay, moving on to page 2 at line 78.3. This was actually the only ad in the governor's budget proposal. This is a $902,279 increase for the regional commission contracts. I'm sure you're familiar. We have 12 regional commissions across the state. Metro Atlanta is somewhat unique, and the other 11 are serve generally more rural populations. The regional commissions are vital resources for the communities to whom they are accountable, as well as to the state. They help do not only the planning for that is a requirement of the state, but many of them assist with grants and grant administration and grant writing and the like. So the $902,000 would increase what is today a $1.9 million number that is divided among the 12.
And we haven't had an increase in this in a long time.
In a very long time, that's
Okay.
correct.
All right.
Okay, moving on to.
Any questions on that?
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
sorry.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, moving on to page 8 in your tracking sheet at line 83.1. The next two are also house ads. At 83.1 is a $4 million add to the State Housing Trust Fund. So let's consider this a corollary to what we just talked about on the State Housing Accountability Program, which is the Georgia Way. Last year, you increased the funds for the State Housing Trust Fund by $4.6 million and challenged us to go and leverage additional federal funds to address homelessness. So with that challenge and with the additional capacity for us to pursue federal funds, DCA was able to lead the charge for an additional for an increase by 59% in the federal funds that we drew down for homeless services. So that we in 2023 we received $24.1 million. Last year we were awarded $38.3 million, and 91 of 91 proposed projects were funded. That included 17 new projects across the state. Similar to the questions that we already spoke about, and I don't have the data, but I can get it to Caroline. These programs, many of them, except for the 17 new ones, are very successful at doing what they are expected to do in addressing homelessness. That is providing temporary shelter, providing permanent supportive housing to keep people housed and to get them kind of back into society. And all of the reporting on that is available every year. We have to provide that back to the federal government as well to justify those funds. So we were able, with the increase last year, to really significantly increase the federal funds that we drew down. And the $4 million add is simply intended for us to go and continue to pursue additional leveraged funds. Questions on that?
Just what would you say is the total homeless in Georgia population?
I can get you that number. It's more complicated, and I don't have it right off the top of my head. I know that, it would be better for me to answer that question offline and
Okay.
give you a real number and also an idea of what I like to look at is like a heat map, where those where that homeless
Yeah.
population exists, because it's surprising where it is across the state.
Okay.
Are you concerned at all about federal funding being cut on this with all the cuts that's going on?
Yeah,
in
I
DC?
think that's, I think we would be unwise not to be somewhat concerned. I spent the first couple of days this week in D.C. We received assurance from HUD that these are continuum of care funds is the
Yeah.
primary source of those, and we were assured that the funds that I just mentioned
Will be there.
would be there and would be flowing in the next handful of weeks. So that's certainly on our radar, but we're continuing to operate as this is a significant need in the state, and
All right.
we're going to keep doing our job.
Next.
Last one, I believe, 83.2 is a $500,000 house ad, and this is for the statewide Independent Living Council. This is simply a pass-through to the statewide Independent Living Council that provides home access for individuals in the state. Their current budget is $100,000. They draw that down quarterly and go and assist individuals with home access. So that's just a simple increase there.
Okay.
I think that's it.
They're 100,000, that's effectively 600,000.
Just 600,000. That's right.
Is that it?
That's it.
Okay, any questions?
Only question, not the question, I have the same concern the chairman just said about the further fund. They say a few weeks, you assured a few weeks, but, we're talking about the whole year. So I hope that
I'm looking to draw down
Yeah.
funds that we can
Yeah.
spend the rest of the
Yeah.
year.
Oh, okay.
Senator.
Oh, I was just concerned when I heard that one, because, anyway, that was my concern. Thank you, appreciate it for clearing that out.
All right, Commissioner, thank you for your time. Appreciate you. Thanks for all you do.
Thank you.
Next, we'll go to Department of Economic Development. Josh, are you going to handle it?
John's got it.
Okay, come on up, Mr. Muff.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. With me today is Josh Stevens and Sidney Smith.
Okay.
Help with any questions we may have.
And again, if you could, tell us what line you're on, what page and line.
Let me get my old man glasses on here. 132, section 23, 132.3, read the first item of discussion. And that is, we'll give you a minute to get there. Okay,
Okay, that's on page 13. Is that,
14, sir.
or 14?
Page 14.
Okay, mine's a little different, I'm sorry. Okay, which one is this now?
Okay, that's 132.3,
All right.
and that's $120,000 add to our budget. Last session, the Joint Defense Commission was transferred to our agency from the Technical College System of Georgia, and this transfer reflects the dollars associated with that program. And we've been working with Senator Kirkpatrick and others on what the program will look like at our agency. Back in December, I attended one of the board meetings, and I see the value of this because it gives the Defense Committee, the military base and things like that, it gives them a voice. They have a forum there where they can come and talk about some of the issues that they're dealing with, and I don't think it's surprising to any of you. Some of that is housing, and our friend Commissioner Nunn talked about housing. Well, that's also an issue with the military. And also, another issue that they're experiencing now is job for the spouses, whether it's a husband or a wife, the jobs for those spouses. What they're coming across is it's a long process to get back into the system. So we'll look at something and they'll say they qualify for, say, a G6 or something like that on their application, and for whatever reason, it's just a long, drawn-out federal process. And a lot of times they're saying when it gets back to them, they're saying, well, you're only qualifying for, say, a G4. So they have to go through all these processes. So that's another issue that they're dealing with. So I think it's a good thing that we're able to be there and listen to them, and then we can bring their ideas and some of their issues that they have to the legislature. So I think that's a pretty good thing. And like I said, we're working with Will Ball. He's on the commission as well.
Okay.
And he helps us out with that. Any questions on that?
Any questions? Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Next.
The next one is on page 16. It's 136.998. And this is a combination where we're moving money into global commerce, and it's also coming from another area within our budget, 139,997, from the rural program. This is an add of $636,700. This is for our two positions that we currently had in the rural program. What's happening is they're looking to close out the rural program, move about half of the money back into global commerce. That would potentially be for the Hyundai project manager and the new site development position that we have.
Didn't we fund the Hyundai last time? Or
Well, this
a-
is just continuing.
it's continuation of that
Yes.
job?
It's moving the money from the rural, and they're
Alright.
taking some of that money and they're moving it, $736,000, $636,000 to the global commerce. So those two positions will stay within our budget.
I'm not sure if I'm following. Where's the rule that
Okay,
it's
so
taken
the
away
rural,
from?
that is 139. And if you go down to 139 on page 18, you'll see,
Yeah, you'll see
the
it on
two cuts there.
139.997.
Okay,
then you'll see the second cut on 998,
okay.
okay?
Come on up, Josh. Come sit up here at W3, please.
I was just going to say, so it really is just kind of transferring funds from one program to the next.
Okay.
Excuse me. So Josh Stevens, Georgia Department of Economic Development. So what this is doing, as John mentioned, 139, you'll see the transfer of funds from from the rural budget to global commerce and vice versa. Some of those funds are going pursuant to HB 495 that's
Okay.
over here in the Senate to Department of Ag.
I got you. Okay,
So it's not an ad, it's just kind of moving
Right,
funds.
just moving funds.
all right. You got that, Senator? All right.
And then if you go down to 139.997 and 998, you'll notice that that's wiping out that budget. 636,000 will be going to the global commerce. That'll be able to house our 2 positions, plus it'll give them regular op, travel, and marketing funds because we want to be able to market that site development. The second piece, the 998, is a remaining balance of that, which is 761,000. Now, these were 2 positions that retired out. This was the Rural Strike Force that we had those positions in. And just to be clear, we'd just like to flag that this program had a deputy commissioner position in the statutory regulations. So they're pulling this out, but statutorily, it does say that we should provide a deputy commissioner into this position. That position, that funding now is going to the Georgia Department of Agriculture, as it states on here.
Questions on this from the committee? Okay.
The
All right.
next piece is on page 19, 141.2. This is dealing with some of the items that are coming into the tourism division. The first one is a cut of $250,000. That's money to our friends with the World Congress Center. Over the last 3 years, they've received $30 million towards infrastructure and things like that. So they received $29,250,000 last year, plus a $250 year before that, $250, and now this year's $250. So that $250 will now come out because we've hit that line item of $30 million for them.
Okay.
The next line item is a pass-through to the MLK Center for Nonviolent Social Change of $250,000. And I would imagine that they're going to be doing some infrastructure changes on that. We do have a pass-through with the MLK. Currently, it's at $500,000. With this $250, that pass-through in '26 will be for $750,000, sir.
And it looks like this is what they're going to spend it on, these marketing kiosks and
Yes, sir.
education. I got you.
And
I was going to ask if you have
Yes.
someone here from
Yes.
Andrew.
Andrew.
Andrew,
Morning, Mr. Chairman, committee.
introduce yourself and grab that mic right there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Good morning, committee. Mr. Chairman, my name is Andrew Long, and I represent the Martin Luther King Jr. Center for Nonviolent Social Change. And those funds are going to be strategically used for marketing and education. As you remember, the King Center is the #1 destination for international visitors. As soon as they touch down at the airport, first thing they want to do is come to the King Center. And so it's going to be education of the King legacy and the King Center itself and marketing. Yes, sir.
Okay. Any questions? All right, next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Andrew.
And the last item on here is 141.4, and that is a $7 million ad, and that is for our friends at the World Congress Center, and that is for execution of public safety and infrastructure. As you know, a lot of big events are coming down the line for that, and so with the way things are going on in the world today, infrastructure, security, and things like that are paramount, and so this funding will help them with the events that are coming down the road. Future major sporting events, including the Super Bowl, 2031 NCAA Men's Final Four, and that will be a pass-through from us to them.
And we'll talk a little more about that when we get to you guys' budget, but I fully support this. You know, I told someone the other day that the safest place in the world was New Orleans during the Super Bowl.
Yes.
The security was unbelievable. So it's massive, massive to take that project on.
Yeah.
Having a Super Bowl is not easy. I mean, it's
And-
great for the economy, hotels, restaurants, and showcasing our city.
Yes.
But boy, it takes a lot of work to put these things on, and we don't want any problems.
Right.
We want it to go off without a hitch. So I fully support this. And so any questions? Is that your presentation?
That's our
Any
presentation, sir.
questions? I do have one final question.
Yes.
Can you just give us a quick 2-minute update on Rivian? Are they making their payments? Are they cutting the grass? Are they being good stewards to the?
I'll ask
To the,
Cindy, she knows a little more about that.
Are they being good stewards to the citizens
far
there
as I
while they're
know, they
waiting to
are.
make decisions? I think they got a deal with Volkswagen and so on, but where are we at on Rivian? Is it, whatever you can say? I know there's probably some things you
Yeah.
can't say, but I do want to make sure that the grass is being cut and the place is being taken care of for the community.
Yes, sir. No, we definitely understand that, and we'll say that, you know, a lot of the updates as it relates to that project, of course, we want to leave it to them to update exactly what their plans are here for the future, but we do believe that everything should be moving forward.
Okay. All right. We'll keep working because we want to get that thing,
Absolutely.
we want to get that pad. We don't want it to be an empty pad. We want to get jobs and get that thing built. So
Yes,
thank
sir.
you.
We're on the same
Appreciate
page
all
as
your
you.
hard work. All right, next we're going to go to Hunter Hill. If you can come up, is Hunter here? Senator, come on up, and we're going to talk about the Georgia Environmental Finance Authority. And again, if you tell us what line you're on, and we'll run through yours.
Morning, Mr. Chairman. Good to be with y'all.
Good.
Thanks for your help on the supplemental. We're excited about the projects we're going to be doing that are generationally going to be positive for the southeastern part of the state. So thank you for that. For this, we are on line. Let's see, what do you call it?
Where are we at?
89.1. Sorry for the delay. These are mostly pass-through funds. I'll go through each one. The Georgia Rural Water Association is $673,495, and as you can see, we didn't have any changes up or down from the House. But we partner with the Georgia Rural Water Association to help us with technical assistance for smaller systems on water and sewer infrastructure. They're a vital partner. The grants to resource conservation and development districts, there's 11 in our state, and they get 30,000. They've traditionally gotten about 30,000 each, and we contract with them. But their purpose is they're dedicated to planning and implementing activities that conserve natural resources, support economic development, enhance the environment, and improve the standard of living for rural parts of the state. The Metro North Georgia Water Planning District gets $250,000 from us if approved by y'all for their annual budget. And then not on this line, if you go to the bond package, 380.78, it's 20% of 124.5 million. So every year we get federal dollars. In this case, it's 124,500,000 for water and sewer infrastructure development, and the state matches 20% of that. And that's gone up the last couple of years due to more federal funding coming in for the IIJA. So that's what that's for. It's a state match.
At 24.9?
24.9 million.
Okay.
Happy to answer any questions.
Chairman, you have any questions?
Okay.
Senator, any questions? No? Appreciate all you do. Let's make sure we have water.
Yes,
So,
sir.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate y'all.
All
Thank
right.
you very much.
Next, we'll go to the World Congress Center. Kevin Duval. Kevin, if you'd come on up, bring your team that you want to come on up and present. What line are we on?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
All right. We're on section 23, I believe.
Yes, sir. We're on page 19. We're here to support 141.4, I think economic development. just mentioned that, but we're here with the Sports Council, our partner from the Sports Council. And I think as I've reminded everybody before, the World Congress Center Authority, Mercedes-Benz Stadium, the Sports Council, and the ACVB all go out and bid on large events. And so we have several. We've been blessed for the state of Georgia to have several large events coming in the near future, including next year. And so I have Dan Corso here to talk about the Super Bowl and the Final Four and what it takes to put on these events. As you noted a little bit earlier, safety is paramount, and infrastructure and safety are always on our mind for all these large events, as these large events are targets at the end of the day. And so we're appreciative of the addition of the $7 million for these large events and the economic impact they'll bring. So
You know, it's kind of a tough deal to make sure it's safe.
Yes, sir.
But also have a good customer experience.
Absolutely.
To where the customer doesn't really feel the pain of the going through barricades or going through security or whatever they've got to go through.
Absolutely.
So it's kind of y'all do a good job of that. At least in New Orleans they did. It was you felt safe, but you felt like you could get in the stadium and get where you needed to go.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, good morning. I would echo what you said. You said it perfectly about the experience in New Orleans, and these events are getting bigger and bigger, right? They're taking longer and longer to plan out, and so we are actually officially on the clock for the Super Bowl in 2028, even though it's just under 3 years away. So there has been discussions with the NFL on planning, even as recent as the last week. So to your point about New Orleans, it was very safe, not just safe for the visitors, but for the residents of New Orleans and Louisiana who came and experienced that event. And that is the idea of these events, is it's not just about the visitation, it's about the residents of the state and how they can be a part of it as well. So to keep a safe environment, an efficient environment from an experience standpoint for the visitors provides reputational value for our state as a great destination for these sporting events, which is part of the reason, and also the engagement of the leadership here is why we keep getting these events back. So thank you for your support.
Okay. I fully support this. I think the committee does. I know I've had conversations with the Lieutenant Governor's office. He supports this because we want to be in the business of tourism and big sporting events, because it also showcases our city and our state when we have these big events. But I want to ask you on another note, because this is the $7 million I know is for Super Bowl, Final Four, and all that. But what are we doing to attract? I don't want to say smaller events, but Little League baseball tournaments or golf tournaments or anything that we can do to fill up hotel rooms and besides the big events. I mean, the big events are sexy and they're great, and I love those. But I want to talk about maybe doing some other things. You and I have talked about having a Ryder Cup, going after a Ryder Cup.
Wouldn't that be something?
And I know we have the Masters and we have the Tour Championship, so we probably have enough, in the eyes of the golf world. They probably think we have enough, but we've got some really great courses here, and the Ryder Cup is a big deal, and I don't know how we would pursue that, but I want to pursue other events besides just.
There are, while we are focused on the bigger events just by the purpose of our organization,
and I get that.
There are venues and organizations throughout the state and Metro Atlanta that do focus on some of the smaller events, yet are still larger events based on scale in their community, whether it's Savannah, whether it's Gwinnett, whether it's Rome, whether it's Alpharetta. You've got events and venues. Lake Point Sports up in Bartow County is a great example of a venue that can bring in people from all over the southeast and the nation to play baseball, play soccer. So it is very active. Anytime we get a lead on an event like that, we throw it out to one of our partners.
You throw it out to those convention and visitor bureaus? Because I'll give you an example. Like Alpharetta, for example, we have an equestrian center. When they have a horse show there, every hotel's full.
Right.
They're eating out. I mean, and those people have money and they spend money.
Correct. And Rome has a fantastic tennis center. So there's opportunities all over.
So I think we need to work with our local convention and visitor bureau and have them get together. But I do think there's some opportunity in those venues.
I agree.
All right. Anything else with this? When is the Final Four?
2031.
2031?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Not quite on the clock, but it's very soon.
And how's World Cup coming?
World Cup has come along very well. Yes, we are 470 days away or so from our first match of 8, and the planning is coming together thanks in part to the leadership of the state and multiple governments around the Metro Atlanta area, and We've got all our venues lined up. The Georgia World Congress Center is lined up to host a big part of it, certainly the matches at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, but there'll be hotel rooms all over the region and the state, and we're working with the state to figure out how we can drive tourism to other parts of this great state during that 30-day period of our matches. When people are not going to a match or participating in one of the fan events in downtown, how can they go out and see different parts of the state and experience it?
And there's 8 matches?
8 matches, yes, sir.
And is one of those a quarter?
Semifinal on July 15th, yes.
Okay, that's a big deal.
It's a big one.
Okay, any questions? Well, thank you for all your hard work.
Yes, sir.
We really
Thank you.
do appreciate it, and the college football championship was
was a good one.
huge. It was
Yeah.
good, and
We're in line to get that back a third time, so thank you for your support there.
we'll be there to support you.
Great.
All right, thanks. Kevin,
Thank you, sir.
anything else you
No,
got?
sir, appreciate
All
it.
right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we got one more. We got the Public Service Commission. If y'all would come on up and
Morning, Mr. Chairman. My name is Reese McAllister. I'm the Executive Director at the Public Service Commission, and today I have Tom Baum with me as well. He's our Director of Utilities and our lead attorney at the Commission. So if you have any utility questions or any legal questions, he'll be happy to answer those for you, not me. So it's good to be here. Thank you. First off, let me express regrets on behalf of our chairman. He had a commitment in South Georgia today.
yeah, he called me
He did call you.
yesterday, so
Yes, sir.
I appreciate that, and
Yes,
we're
sir.
glad to have you.
Yes, sir. That's good to be here. And like I said, on behalf of the entire Public Service Commission and staff, thank you all for the work you did on the amended 25 budget. And for the 26 budget, we're thankful to Chairman Meeks and the House for the additions. And we're excited and hopeful for your favorable consideration of those additions today. While we are a relatively small state agency and our appropriations are smaller in comparison to some other agencies in Georgia, the impact of the commission and its regulatory function touches the lives of most of the citizens of this state. As the gentleman that just left talked about all the great events that are coming to Georgia, where would those events be without utilities to support them? So we're proud of the role we play in that as well. So regarding our request, we're going to be on sheet page 20, line 281.3. We'll start there. And this is attorney's fees. As you well know, the Public Service Commission is a quasi-judicial body, and its decisions are subject to judicial review at Fulton County Superior Court. And when PSC decisions are challenged, the commission's represented by the Attorney General's office at the Fulton County Superior Court. Recently, in one of our cases,
Can I stop you right there?
Yes, sir.
All your cases go to Fulton County?
They
Is that-
can, yes.
Can they go to a different venue or not? Or
I
do
think
they
can
have to go to
skip
Fulton?
and go straight.
Most of them go to Fulton County. Occasionally, there's certain federal laws that interact with us. So occasionally, some of our decisions go to U.S. District Court.
What if the case is in Chatham County? It still comes to Fulton
It
County?
still comes to Fulton County. Any judicial review of a commission decision in state court has to go to Fulton County. The instance that Mr. McAllister is talking about here is one where we've had a complaint filed against us at FERC in D.C. So that can occasionally happen as well.
Okay. I've had some discussions with some of my colleagues about looking at not having everything go to Fulton County. They're backlogged, and sometimes it's hard to get in front of a judge, as you know, and if we should look at having different venues, if you will. I know the Constitution says this is the capital in Fulton County, so I don't know how we get around that, but anyway, I just wanted to ask you, have you
Yeah.
had trouble getting your cases through, or are they speedy?
Well,
or?
most of the cases are people that are challenging our decisions. So I
Okay.
guess selfishly, if it goes kind of slow, we're not all
You're okay.
upset about it.
Yes, sir.
But I would imagine, people filing complaints, they may want it to move faster, but I've not heard any particular complaints about it.
Okay. I noticed that you're asking for increased funds here for legal support, and then over here on lines 283.3, you're asking for more money for recruitment and retention of skilled lawyers. Why is it so hard for us to keep lawyers or retain lawyers? What's
The industry pays a lot more than we do.
private industry?
Yeah, I mean, we just had a 10-year attorney leave back in November, his salary was literally doubled by leaving the commission. One of our former attorneys now works for Troutman Pepper, which is George Power's attorney. He goes toe-to-toe with our attorneys. He makes over 3 times what they make. That's sort of the crux of our problem is, you know, we get new attorneys on. By the time we get them trained up and understanding, there's a long learning curve with utility regulation. By the time we get them trained up and they start to understand what's happening and how to do it, somebody comes in and offers them a lot more money, and we lose them. And so that's what we're trying to do is be able to offer them. We're never going to be able to offer pay that's competitive with private industry, but if we can offer a bit more, it will hopefully let us retain them longer. And so that's the goal of the request.
Should we just outsource all legal counsel?
Well,
Or do you have to have some in-house legal counsel?
we use attorneys every day in-house. The AG's office only handles our appeals. So they handle our Fulton County appeals and things like that. They don't provide us any support currently in our hearings at the commission. That's all in-house counsel. The problem with outsourcing it is the cost would even be higher. If you have a full-time outsourced attorney, that's going to be a much higher rate than a full-time state employee.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
Just my comment, I think I agree with it. I think it's not a problem on your agency. I think it's statewide. Every agency you go, you hear that, you know, you train an employee, bring somebody new and train a year or so, and they go jump somewhere else, you know, make twice as much. That's not the new story I've been hearing, you know, a few years seeing it, and I think, you know,
Yeah, I mean,
and
I think-
outsourcing probably going to cost a lot
I
more money.
think that's a
too.
problem with Department of Transportation. They get an engineer, and then some private engineering company takes them and doubles their pay. So, I mean, we're a good training ground, I guess, but, okay. All right. Go ahead. I'm
Okay,
sorry to interrupt
that's no
you. So
problem.
that's the 30,000 there?
Yes, sir. And that was recommended by the Attorney General's office because it is at FERC, which is in Washington DC.
Okay.
And the Attorney General doesn't have attorneys that specialize at FERC. So they
Okay.
recommended we hire a Special Assistant Attorney General, which we did, and that cost of $30,000 is an initial cost. If the case gets appealed to the district court, that might change, but for right now, $30,000 is what they've told us, and that's what we've authorized them to do to
Okay.
represent us in that case.
All right.
And like I said, this is an important case because it could possibly put Georgia Power ratepayers on the hook for $78 million if we were not favorable decision in the case. So, and it was a security bond. Basically, they were asking this renewable energy company to put up to protect the ratepayers.
Okay. All right. Next.
Pipeline Safety Inspector, it's on page 21, line 282.3. Last year, we requested 2 pipeline safety inspectors, and Chairman Beach, we appreciate you advocating on our behalf for the second pipeline safety inspector. Unfortunately, only 1 inspector was approved in the FY25 budget. So this year, as we were getting ready in our briefing with the Office of Planning and Budget, we renewed our request for the second inspector. In anticipation of this request, the House and Senate approved a one-time $42,142 appropriation in the amended 25 for the new inspector's equipment. So thank you for that. And in the FY26 budget, we're now asking for the $77,792 to pay the state's portion of that salary for that inspector, for which you've already approved the equipment for. And the additional $24,781 is really a true-up for a shortage of federal funding received for last year's inspector. We anticipated more money, but the reimbursement was lower than we thought, so it's just a true-up for that. And as we've said before, we employ several people in our pipeline safety department. They inspect all the pipes that natural gas flows through. I think we have 90,000 miles of natural gas pipeline in Georgia, and of 159 counties in Georgia, 149 of them have gas flowing through them. So, and right now we have 12 inspectors and a supervisor, and so we would need that other person to help with that. It's a lot of area to cover.
Yes. A lot of miles.
Yes, sir.
All right. Any questions on that, Mr. Chairman? Senator?
No, thank you.
Okay. All right. let's move on.
And the last one is 283.3, which you referenced before, is our attorneys, engineers, and analysts. And the House did add the $250,000 for retention and recruitment. As Tom said, not including himself, we have 4 attorneys on staff. Their years are 40, 21, 11, and we have a new attorney just out of law school. And of those attorneys, the 40-year attorney makes just over $100,000. The other 3 are under $100,000 a year. And all 4 are critical for our integrated resource planning, rate cases, and are split between 2 teams. So we need our attorneys to be trained, as Tom shared, is that it takes a while to train them, and then when you get them trained, you want to keep them, because they're going up against some of the best attorneys in the country. And since we are a quasi-judicial organization, our commissioners base their decisions on the record. So it's so important for our attorneys to be good, and our engineers to be good, and our analysts to be good, to get evidence to find, so that when they argue for rate cases and reductions, that they'll find that information. So that's why we need this money, to help us retain those experienced, trained attorneys. So
When you recruit an attorney, do you recruit them right out of law school, or do you try to get somebody with a couple years' experience? Or?
we try to find experienced attorneys.
Yeah, it obviously with state budget, sometimes we only have enough money to hire a new attorney, and we do have some work that is good for new attorneys, like open records requests, call before you dig type work. New attorneys can handle that kind of stuff. With something like an integrated resource planning case or a rate case, there's no way you could put a new attorney in there.
Right.
Because they not only have to know how to do cross-examination and all that kind of stuff, they have to know the subject matter. I mean, if you try to cross-examine an expert witness about their 30-year forecast for energy needs, and you don't know how to either cross-examine and you don't know what a forecast is or how it works, it's going to be a terrible case. And like Mr. McAllister said, the commission decisions have to be based upon the record. And if you can't build the record evidence, you can't make a decision on it. So,
Okay. Mr. Chairman, any questions? Any questions? That's all we have. Thank you for what you do, keeping the lights on. We appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good to see you.
All right. Any public comment? Did we have anybody sign up for public comment? Come on up. If you'll go to the podium and tell us who you are, and then we'll like to hear from you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. I had some materials I wanted to share with the committee, if I may.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Elizabeth Apley. I'm an attorney and public policy advocate, and I'm here on behalf of Enterprise Community Partners, House ATL, Presbyterians for Better Georgia, 9 to 5 Georgia, the Corporation for Supportive Housing, and, if I may, the 25 groups supporting the budget ask that you see listed on the second sheet in the handout that I've shared with you. Representing housing advocates and children's advocates and healthcare advocates from across the state of Georgia. We're here regarding line 83.1 in the tracking sheet, an appropriation for the Department of Community Affairs and specifically to the State Housing Trust Fund for the Homeless.
Let me get to this. Hold on.
Yes, sir.
83.1?
Yes, sir.
The $4 million?
So, it's important to look at that line item that Commissioner Nunn pointed out relating to housing. And you heard the commissioner say that Georgia is overwhelmingly funding housing through federal funds. So if you look at the home ownership line item, you see that there's zero, the rentership, zero. We get to the State Housing Trust Fund for the Homeless, which was created some 30 years ago. It it is charged with the responsibility to support increased housing for low-income Georgians through the creation and preservation and support for rental housing and for the support for home ownership for lower-income families. That Housing Trust Fund for the Homeless was created and a constitutional amendment passed to provide for the non-lapsing of funds. They've relied over the years on annual appropriations, which were static at about $3 million for many years. There was an increase last year, and the House has proposed an additional increase. The particular program that I wanted to discuss with the committee today is one that addresses the very serious housing crisis that we have in Georgia. You know, housing is health care. And it's an essential foundation to have strong communities, to have strong economy, to have strong families. We know that rental prices soared during the pandemic, and while price increases have slowed, they have not returned to pre-pandemic levels. In some parts of the state, Zillow is reporting that between 2019 and 2023, rental prices outstripped wage increases by 3 to 1, with rent going up 36% and wages increasing only 12%. When you talk about those who are most at risk of housing instability, we're talking about low-income families, seniors, people with children, and nationally, the data is that the population most at risk of eviction are babies and children 0 to 5 years of age. More than a third of Georgia families are renters. Over half are cost burdened, meaning that they're spending more than that recommended 30% of household income on rent, and 28% are severely cost burdened, meaning they're spending over 50% of household income on rent. So when the inevitable bumps in the road, those financial hardships that happen to all of us at some point, happen to these vulnerable families that are cost burdened, it can lead to a non-payment of rent, which leads to eviction. Eviction is a tremendous crisis for a family. It can mean loss of employment for the parents, loss of school progress for children. It has enormous physical and emotional adverse impacts, poor pregnancy outcomes. There's a 16-year study of Georgia and the impact of eviction on pregnancy outcomes in Georgia women, published in the Journal of the American Medical Association Pediatrics, finding that it's correlated with low birth weight, preterm birth, and multi-generational adverse impacts. So landlords also suffer from eviction. It's a hard economic loss. And every eviction costs the local community over $11,200. This was a University of Arizona law study specific to Georgia, finding that when you look at the cost of emergency shelter and medical hospitalization, juvenile delinquency, and social safety net programs, that these costs are being expended. Every $100 increase in the cost of rent results in a 9% increase in homelessness. Family homelessness across the country rose by 39% between 2023 and 2024. Homelessness in Georgia increased by 29% between 2018 and 2024 and has risen steadily since 2017. In Georgia, the McKinney-Vento count shows that we have over 41,000 homeless school children, and that rose by about 5,000 from the year before. As the governor pointed out in his State of the State address, most Americans and most Georgians are living paycheck to paycheck. So half of American households have less than $2,000 in savings, and a third have less than $250. So when these working families have a loss in hours at work, or a medical emergency, or the car breaks down, or the inevitable crises that happen in life, it can mean that they are at great risk of eviction and potentially homelessness. So during the COVID era, the federal government provided Georgia over $1 billion in COVID emergency rental assistance. The department distributed that to over 61,000 households, helping to keep them stably and safely housed. At the end of those dollars, the department chose to use $55 million in those federal dollars that were remaining to create a pilot program for statewide emergency rental assistance, short-term rental assistance, 2 or 3 months of assistance for these bumps in the road. And I just wanted, I shared with you, this is from the Department of Community Affairs. You have that in what I shared with you. They start on page 2 by describing the case for providing emergency rental assistance. And the department says that people may need it because of job loss, reduced work hours, medical emergencies, and they point out that currently there's no other statewide emergency rental assistance program comparable to what the department is providing to meet these needs. They go on to describe this pilot program that they created to provide rent relief to Georgians impacted, to administer it, and they developed this process for reviewing and validating applications. And on page 4, they identify what they've done in this pilot program to combine legal representation for low-income people facing eviction with this capped $2 million a month of available short-term emergency rental assistance. I'm sorry, it came apart. The target population is these low-income households. The partnership was effected through contracts with the Legal Aid Society of Atlanta and Georgia Legal Services Program. And as I said, the monthly assistance that was available through the program was capped at $2 million a month. Final determination as to eligibility to receive assistance was made by the Department of Community Affairs with the assistance of these navigators who are pre-qualifying people. So as you can see on page 5, it's a combination of rental assistance, legal support, mediation services to avoid eviction, and case management. And the impact, according to the Department of Community Affairs, was to prevent evictions, reduce homelessness risk, and support long-term housing stability. I particularly want to point you to page 6. And this is where the Department of Community Affairs lays out the implications of ending this pilot program. The federal funds will be exhausted and expire in September of this year. And what the department points out is that we're facing increased housing instability and homelessness, economic and financial consequences, not only to the family, but to landlords, a strain on public services in the court system with increased evictions, public health and social disruptions, and rental market volatility. So the Department of Community Affairs has recognized and stated publicly the importance of the department and the state having an emergency rental assistance program. It's proven to be effective. It's cost effective. It's essential to protect the safety and health of families, and it is aimed, as I said, at this short-term 2 to 3 months of rent and utility assistance to keep families stably housed. It's not about fixing that problem of the permanent mismatch, if you will, between income and rent. So, this is a upstream solution. It's one that the department has proven works well. We hope that you will consider increasing. We're asking for a continuation of funding at the $25 million level. We interpret the House putting in $4 million there at 83.1 as perhaps a first step in meeting this opportunity. And I appreciate your indulgence. And
well, thank you
happy to
for
answer any
coming before
questions.
us. You and I have met offline.
Yes, sir.
I admire your passion, and thank you for all your work in this area. It's a tough issue. And, it breaks your heart when you see people that are struggling like that. And so we're doing the best we can. I think Commissioner Nunn's doing a good job, and we're going to do all we can to make sure we're doing the best we can to help these folks.
Thank you. Thank you,
Any
sir.
questions,
Appreciate it.
Senator? Mr. Chairman? Okay, thank you for your presentation, and
Thank
thank
you,
you for
sir.
being here, and again, thank you for your passion. If there's nobody else, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.